Hello everyone, I'm the Enforcer, and welcome to the breaking news. Today, within the southern Russian oblast of Ingushetia, the signs of an armed uprising by a small militant group appear to have begun as the Russian FSB is now engaged in firefights within the small town of Karbalak to try and suppress and put down these armed militants. This is a group that this channel has actually spoken about many months ago, almost around the time of September and October of last year in 2023, when an announcement was made by this armed militant group that they were going to be attempting to rise up against the Russian Federation for the wrongs and injustices that had been conducted against the Ingushetian people who live within this area of the Russian Federation. It appears that video footage today that was gathered on Twitter is showing that there is currently a firefight going on in between armed militants and the Russian FSB, showing that apparently this armed militant group has been conducting an armed uprising against the Russian Federation and is now starting to be involved in open firefights with Russian forces. Sadly, we cannot show this video here on YouTube, as it would, of course, make sure that this video is age restricted, and nobody would really be able to get this news. But if you do want to see it, there is a link in the description below to this very map, and you can go to this marker within this area of southern Russia, click on it, and watch it yourself, and you can see some of the footage of the firefights that have been unfolding and going on over the past few hours, really just over the past 40 minutes, as these armed militants are now in a heavy firefight within Karabakh against the Russian FSB. In the meantime, while the Russian government appears to be having some problems holding down the Ingushetian people inside the Caucasus Mountain region, we're also seeing that way off in the city of Yekaterinburg, one of the largest cities within the Russian Federation, partisans are attempting to damage and successfully damage a major electrical substation within the city that provides power to three major military defense plants that produce weapons and munitions for the Russian armed forces. We can see the explosion inside of the substation right there. From what we understand, the partisans set off an improvised explosive device, detonating within the inside area of the substation and causing critical damage, shutting off power to those three defense plants. We do not know how serious that damage really is, and depending on how serious the damage to the substation is, it would give us a really good idea of how long it will actually take the Russians to get those defense plants operational. Another thing that we do not know is whether those defense plants have additional diesel, or for that matter, any kind of a backup generator system that would be able to provide temporary power until the substation's electric connections to the power plants were once again secured and back online. These things we unfortunately do not know at the moment of airing of this video, but nevertheless, the damage that was caused to the substations is assumed to be severe enough that the production of war materials at those three major factories within Yekaterinburg has most likely been hindered, at least for today, and we'll have to try and check back in the future to see how long it really was affected. But moving on from Yekaterinburg, where we're once again starting to see partisan activity making an increase and once again starting to have a fairly profound impact on the Russian war effort, we can also see that the Ukrainians are having an impact on the Russian war effort in their own very direct way within the city of St. Petersburg. Over last night, really just over this past hour, Ukrainian drones have flown all the way from Ukraine to St. Petersburg itself, targeting the city and attacking some of the port facilities that are found within Russia's second largest city and the former capital back in Russian imperial times. The longest range attack that we had ever seen up until this point was the attack on the Russian oil depot of Ust-Luga, or more so the oil port of Ust-Luga, where a lot of Russian ships transiting the Baltic Sea end up depositing or loading their oils to be transported around the world or transported into the Russian Federation. This drone attack that has happened today now takes the cake as being the longest range drone attack to ever occur within the course of the war. And we got to see that the Russian air defense attempted to shoot down the drones, but appears to have been unsuccessful, as it does seem in secondary video footage that the drones were able to hit their target and destroy the port facilities. We can see right here the Russian air defense beginning to fire. Correction, someone turned on their house light, but we can see the streak of the missile that attempted to intercept the Ukrainian drone unsuccessfully. When we see the next clip, we can then get more confirmation that there was a drone attack that successfully hit the city, and we can see that on this security camera right here. We can see the air defense missile attempt to shoot down the drone. And that's the end of the clip. Nevertheless, damage has been caused to the port, and we are going to be hopefully getting more video and picture evidence out to confirm that there was a strike on the port and what kind of damage was caused. The damage could be anything in between minor damage to serious damage, disabling the port entirely, but at this moment, we have absolutely no idea. We have been told, however, that the attack was successful and drones were able to hit their target, but there isn't really a lot of video or picture evidence out there showing the hits, or more so, the damage that was caused after these attacks had ended. But at the exact same time that those attacks are ending and we're seeing that Russian air defense is once again being caught off guard nearly 500 something miles away from the territory of Ukraine, or the nation of Ukraine, we are also able to see that the Russian A-50s may be grounded here in the very near future, according to their ineffectiveness of the war. Or ineffectiveness in the war, more so. According to the UK Defense Ministry, based off of reports that they have been able to compile from intelligence, Russia is most likely going to ground the remaining A-50 command aircraft, or AWACS, which are an early warning system, giving the Russians a bit of a heads up whenever there's incoming missile fire or anything similar. They're going to be grounding all of these going forward, most likely. There's a very high chance. The reason why the British Ministry of Defense has been able to find this information and come to this conclusion is that the Russian Air Force has lost two A-50 mainstays within just the prior month and a half of combat. The first one was lost very close to the city of Berdyansk, inside the Sea of Azov. The second one was actually shot down near the village of Novocherbynovskaya, hopefully pronouncing that correctly, and it was a serious blow to the Russian armed forces. Having lost another entire command aircraft and command crew, this is something that the Russians are starting to consider to be quite a deadly endeavor to even put an A-50 up into the sky. If they ground the A-50 fleet like we're assuming, their communication abilities with their ground forces are going to be heavily hindered. In fact, in some areas, it may almost be like ancient times, having to talk over shortwave radio with commanders inside of Rostov-on-Don, the Russian command headquarters, not really knowing exactly what's going on the front lines or being able to coordinate battlefield efforts as effectively. This means that the already heavily decreased Russian military strategic more so planning or more so execution will even be more worse off than it was prior to the A-50s being grounded, and will once again be showing that there will probably be a pretty steady increase in casualties or a pretty steady increase in frontline stagnation due to the poor coordination and efforts of Russian commanders within Rostov-on-Don. At the exact same time, the Russians cannot be in a worse state as far as their air force is concerned. This information here, the Kyiv Independent put out at 11:39 a.m., says that another Su-34 fighter bomber of the Russian Air Force has been shot down by Ukrainian fire somewhere within the territory of Ukraine. This is the 12th Su-34 fighter that has been shot down over the course of around 12 days, and it is pretty much at this rate around one Su-34 being shot down daily. We have not seen this stop or even change for that matter, as the Russians are attempting to use their brand new Fab 500 glide bomb kits to try and get some extra range and maybe an additional bit of potency out of the Fab 500 bomb. This requires the Su-34s to fly up to a dangerously high altitude of around 6,000 to 7,000 feet, completely visible to all Ukrainian anti-aircraft radars and anti-aircraft surface-to-air missile batteries, which fire on the Su-34s and usually end up shooting them down. We're starting to see that that is now a reoccurring trend, and once again, it also seems that the Russians are not learning, and they are very insistent on continuing these sorties and missions, although they are starting to produce incredibly high casualty rates for the pilots and aircraft of the Russian Air Force. We assume that at this point, these kinds of air losses will continue on for the next 2 to 3 weeks, because the Russian Air Force is not showing any kind of hesitancy, even after high losses in the original first week, on trying to curtail or even slow down the amount of sorties that they're conducting at high altitudes with Fab 500 glide bomb kits. But nevertheless, that's most of the news that we have today, at least right now. If y'all did enjoy, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you really did enjoy, you can support the channel on Patreon, link in the description below. It helps us to make the channel possible, and helps us to be able to tell all this news to each and every one of y'all. I, of course, Thank you all so much once again greatly for watching this video, and if you would like to hear more about what happened today or maybe follow-ups on these events, we also run nightly streams at 10 p.m. Eastern Time every single night, 6 days a week except for Mondays, covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine in picture and video evidence form. But with that, thank you all so much once again for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.